Ruchaba, welcome to the Aliyah Yomi. Today we are doing part 2 of the first Aliyah of Torah Parashat Chukat. Okay, and let's see, we will get right to it. Let's take a look at our Hebrew here, and here we go. So verse 8, V'hasoreif otah yichabes begadaiv b'mayim v'rachatz b'saro b'mayim. Okay, let's just stop there with our etnachta. So the very beginning there, this saraf is the verb, and saraf, you probably know this one. It means to catch on fire, right? For something to be on fire. So the hasoreif, this means the one who burned otah, it. And this is we have a little feminine ending here, because this is referring back to the para, to the heifer, right? The para adamuni, right? So the red heifer. Okay, hasoreif, this is interesting. So this is an active participle, the verb form that we have here. Similar to what you see, shomer, he keeps Israel, shall not slumber or sleep. And the hay that we have, putting a hay at the beginning of an active participle, one possible meaning for this is representing the word asher, the relative pronoun that's called asher. See the ha there? That's like saying asher. So asher soref, so the one who soref burned otah, it, or burns it. There's really no time implied in the participle. Yichabes, he shall wash begadaiv, his clothes. And we would expect an et here. There's not an et. The text does not always perfectly behave grammatically. Like any language which is alive, right? Sometimes you can leave out a certain component. There might be a deeper meaning to that for any of you who are looking for a darash, like a deeper, or a remez meaning, or even a sod meaning, why the et is not there. What will he wash with? B'mayim, with water. So the bait here, this is actually what I would call an accusative of means, right? So instead of in water, it's saying with water, by means of water. He's using water to wash with, right? The rachatz, the next word, the rachatz, and he shall wash besaro, the o is his basar, his flesh, b'mayim, with water. V'tamei ad ha'arev, and he will be unclean ad, until ha'arev, until the evening. Right? And we have that arev. We've got the sof pasuk there, the saluk. This makes the segol lengthens to a comment. In case you're wondering what's happening here, that's why we have that there, like that. Okay, let's continue on. Verse 9. Ve'asaf ish tahor. Ve'asaf ish tahor. Eit efer haparaha. Vehineach michutz lamachane b'makom tahor. Okay, so asaf is he gathered, but ve'asaf, and he will gather. Who's the he? Ish tahor. Ish tahor. So here's our noun. Our noun is ish, and the adjective is tahor. So this is a pure man, a clean man, someone who has not been in contact with a dead thing or a dead person. Okay, so what will he gather? Here's our verb, and here's the definite direct object marker. He will gather the efer hapara. Here we have a construct chain. Efer means ash. In some contexts, it can mean dust. The ash of the para, of the heifer. And kind of an easy way to remember this, there's a nice little mnemonic you can do. So most of you already know the word for dust, right? Because we say like Adam is from the dust, right? So what's the word for dust? A dust is afal, isn't it? Afal. But looky here, this is almost the same word, except we have and aleph. We have an aleph there, don't we? So you could think of afar is dust, and eifel is ash, although it can also mean dust in some contexts, right? But oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, sometimes it has this nuance of the dust of dead things even. So that's interesting. And this comes down even from the Mesopotamian literature, where they also have similar rites for purification when there's contact with with a corpse. Okay, so continuing on. Vehineach, so this is from the word nuach, which is to rest. This is where we get the word Noach, the prophet from the Great Deluge. And this is, the verb is nuach, but this is a Heiffer form. You see, we got our hey there. That, oops, sorry, go back. Sorry, hold on. We have our hey here, which tells us this is a Heiffer, and we also have the yod there. Although words which, hollow verbs that have a vav as a second root letter, sometimes it becomes yod. So that might not be telling you it's Heiffer, but for sure, then that guy tells us it's Heiffer. So to cause to rest, i.e. to set down, to place at a certain place. So the hineach michutz, he shall cause them to rest. We're talking about the ashes. Michutz, outside lamachane, of the camp. And this lamed here, surely you've learned lamed can mean 2 or 4, belonging to, but we also have, we have this Ugaritic lamed. This, in Ugaritic, it can mean from, and I think that actually works really well here. So michutz lamachane, from the camp, right? We have our the here, the footprint from the ha. Okay, just under verse 9. Let's continue with our reading. Be makom, in a place, tahor. Right? So here is our noun, and here is our adjective. What kind of place? A tahor place, a pure place. So he shall bring those ashes outside to a pure place. And what's interesting here is, because we're talking about, it doesn't say it's a kohen. Did you notice that? It doesn't say a kohen. What's it say? It says an ish tahor. Ish tahor. Any man who is pure. So this burden doesn't have to be on the kahuna. It doesn't have to be on the priesthood. It can actually be any man. So I find that interesting. That's such an important procedure as this one, where we're removing the impurities. We're protecting the place of the indwelling of Shekhinah. It just has to be an ish tahor who gathers together the ephah of the parah, and he causes them to rest outside the camp at a makom tahor, at a pure place. Okay, then what? The hayata la'adat b'nei Yisrael. Okay. The mishmeret lemei nida chata'at hi. Okay, so this is a bit interesting here. Let's back up. Okay, so the hayata. Okay, so hayata. This is the feminine form of haya, right? It's the feminine form. So haya means he was or he became, and hayata means she was or she became. And so come back. So the hayata, la'adat. So she shall be, or it will be, for the adat b'nei Yisrael. So here we have a nice construct chain. Let me get our blue color we like to do with that. You see the construct chain? It's a long one. Adat b'nei Yisrael. So this word, adat, this is from Eda. Eda. The Eda is a congregation, a community. It's like a community. You can translate that way too. Sorry if my eye doesn't look so great. So the Edat, we have the construct form here, right? Look at that. Construct form. Okay, hold on. I'm having a display issue. How can we do this? Oh. Okay, there we go. The hey goes back to its ancient ending in ancient Hebrew. That's pre-biblical times. In ancient Hebrew, feminine nouns almost all ended in a thal, in a tal. And so when you go to the construct, it still resurfaces when we want to say of. So Ada becomes adat. So la, adat, and notice there's no definite article here. There's no article on the the lamed, right? You see how there's a patach under there? That patach has nothing to do with definite article. This one right here. What happens is we try to connect the lamed, and by default, inseparable prepositions, they take a schwa, right? And we're trying to attach him, again with this zooming. So we're trying to attach him to, seems I can't put my hand there. Bozhe moi. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can lay this down. Try to attach it to the adat, right? And if you look, adat, he has a composite schwa, right? So what this means is you've got the first letter has a composite schwa. Sorry, it's not quite as neat. I can't, the palm registration's not working. So it's, now if we do this, we have a problem. Because remember, you're not allowed to start a word with two schwas in a row. And here we have one schwa, and two. Even though it's a composite schwa, it's still a schwa. So that's not allowed. So what happens usually in such a situation, the schwa lengthens to chirik, doesn't it? But in this case, when there's a composite schwa, that is a chata patach, like this guy, then we take the vowel sound and we reduplicate that over here. That's what we like to do. So that is why over here you've got the patach, la, because this guy he copied over, and we got it, okay? He copied over. La adat b'nei Yisrael. All right? Okay. Let's continue on. La adat b'nei Yisrael. And we're in verse 9. Lamish meretz. So this is a very interesting word. Lamish meretz. So can you find the root? You see the root? It's related to shamar, isn't it? It's from the root shamar. Shamar. Shin, mem, resh, right? Shamar. So let me shmer it. This word can have different meanings in different contexts. If we're talking about the Levites, then this means guard duty. Mishmeret, it's like the guard duty that they have, if they're guards, if they're protecting the sancta, protecting the sacred places, right? In context here, it's having to do with the ashes. It's something like for safekeeping, for conserving, right? So what's happening is we have the ashes of the para, feminine, will be hayta. They will be la'adat ben Israel, for the congregation, for the community of the Bnei Israel. Lemishmeret, for safekeeping, for conserving, saving them for later. Usually the procedure of the Red Heifer, it was done, and then they had a lot to last for a long time, right? This was good, especially since it's very hard to find a Red Heifer. This is not an easy task. And so even today, I'm sure you're familiar with the search for the Red Heifer. Although they found one, I'm not up on the status of that, if it was invalidated or not. It was looking pretty good for a while, so I think we're still doing pretty good as far as having these ashes. And some people, they freak out, oh no, we don't want the temple built, like it's going to be a bad thing. Look, you really need to readjust your theology. Let's think about what it means to have a temple. The temple continued to function after the death and resurrection of Mashiach, right? In the book of Acts, we read that Rav Shaul, he goes to the temple, he pays for an offering, he takes a vow, he pays for the vow for some other fellows who believe in the Messiah, but they're zealous for Torah Hashem. And so we see that the temple and the priesthood continues to be used. It's not like a lot of the Gentile theology has, that once Yeshua died for the sin, suddenly the temple is invalidated. It's got no use. No, there's many important functions that the temple serves. And without that temple, it's unfortunate that we really never can have the absolute cleansing from the timotah of a dead human being, of a corpse, right? There's always a lingering issue there. All right. So let's continue on. So for safekeeping, lemei nida. Chata'at hi. Okay, let me just draw on that as I go along. I'm not sure if you can see it. Lemei nida chata'at hi. All right? And you'll notice here we have a defective spelling of he. This happens. It's just a different spelling. They used to use waw, the waw sometimes for a I sound. And the Masoretes here, they've corrected it with us. They put the little chirik there so you know to read this he, not who. He, because we're still talking about the feminine, right? We're talking about the ashes from the heifer and all that stuff. So, lamei nida, here we have another construct chain. Right? So that's waters of nida. And you might be thinking, what? Nida? Nida, isn't that menstruation when a woman's on her nida? This is kind of a tricky word. So the issue with nida really, it comes out of, well, there's different theories on it, right? So oftentimes this is translated water of lustration, right? You know, like water of rinsing, something like that. It's derived from this form of the word. We know nida, but it's from a verb, meaning to deprive of purity. That's one of the ideas. Or there's another theory that it actually is related to an Akkadian word that has to do with like flowing or something like this. And so it doesn't necessarily just mean like menstruation. So in the cases of mei nida, don't think about menstruation. It's just that these Mayan Chaim, these living waters, will be able to be sprinkled, flowed, etc. They're able to be used in this way to excise the impurity. Okay? And then we have a final statement, chata'at hi. Okay? It is, we have to say is to make it sense in English, a purification offering. Remember, in Hebrew, we think of things backwards. Like Yoda, right? Chata'at, yes. Right? A purification offering, is it? Yes. Right? So you think backwards. Right? Not in modern Hebrew, but in Tanakh, we do it that way. So here, a purification offering? Ah, come on. Sorry, I'm getting used to this setup I have. I'm trying to do things. Sorry that the page changed. Ah, Boja. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, maybe my control keys can help. There we go, beautiful. Ah, goodness. This could even mean it is for cleansing. Chata'at can have this kind of nuance of cleansing, especially right next to nida, mei nida. Now, so, Chizkuni comments that a man who is clean, so this is talking about the Ish Tahor, shall gather up the ashes of the cow. It would be natural to think that this should be done by a Kohen, right? Who performed the burning, who has already become unclean. But they're taught to send after yet another clean priest to do it. So it's very interesting that we actually have this duty is being done by an Ish Tahor. Okay, verse 10. Let me try to get the pointer here. V'chibes ha'osef et efer hapara et begadai v'tamei ad ha'arev. So chibes means he washed, right? Like usually having to do with laundry. So v'chibes, and he will wash. Now this is the verb, right? Here's our verb. Actually, let me change colors here. Let's see if we can change colors. Okay, so here is our verb. So where's the subject? The subject is all of this. It's a complex subject. Okay. Ha'osef et efer hapara. So here we have an active participle. The one who gathered, the one who collected the efer, the ash of hapara, of the cow. Okay. That is all the subject of this verb here. That one shall wash. What will he wash? Et bagadaiv. His beged. His clothes. You remember, we mentioned in the part one that it's kind of an interesting word. Beged. Beged means clothing. But the verb bagad has quite an interesting other meaning. Bagad means to betray, right? And a boged is a traitor. Boged is a traitor. I don't know, I find that interesting. So anyway, he shall wash his clothing Vetame, then he will be impure ad until ha'arav, the evening. V'hayata livnei Yisrael, and it shall be for the Bnei Israel. So we have a nice construct chain there. Velager, and for the sojourner, Hagar, who sojourns, Betocham, in their, the am is there, in their toch, right? Literally, in their toch, in their midst. Chukat olam. So not until the Mashiach comes. This is not just until Mashiach comes. It is Chukat olam, for an eternal ordinance, an eternal decree. Look at that. Isn't that something? All right. Let's look at verse 13 now. Pardon me, 11. Verse 11. Verse 11 says, Hanoge'a b'meit lechol nefesh adam. Okay. Hanogea b'meit lechol nefesh adam. So naga means to touch. To touch. This is an active participle. So again, the hey, it means the same thing as asher. Oy. Asher. Asher. So the one who touches the mate, literally against mate, a dead thing, lechol nefesh adam, which is from, again, I'm going to treat this as the Ugaritic meaning from the Lamed, which does happen in Hebrew, from chol nefesh adam, I think works better there, from any nefesh adam. Nefesh, now you guys know the word nefesh, you're probably more used to the common meanings for nefesh, right? The most common is what? Soul, right? Soul, that's usually what people learn for nefesh. What else do they learn? Maybe that's it. Nefesh is soul. Nefesh also means throat, it means neck, it means corpse, it means a person, like male or female. If it's a mitzvah about a kind of person, they'll use nefesh sometimes, so that you know it applies to both sexes. And anyway, any human being is really what we're saying. Literally the body of a person, okay? Chol nefesh adam. According to the Talmud, Tractate Yevamot, page 61, this includes non-Bnei Israel, but excludes animal carcasses. Because the Nevilat Chavot, the carcass of an animal, it's only a one-day impurity that it transmits. You're unclean until evening. But the nefesh of a human, this is the timutah, the corpse of a human, the nefesh of a human, it's the most powerful uncleaning agent. It's the most powerful impurifier that's out there. Okay. Continuing on. V'tameh shiv'at yamin. And he will be unclean, shiv'at yamin, for 7 yamin, days. Okay. Note this is an irregular. The way that the plural happens with yom is not exactly what you'd expect. So the word is yom. Okay. Day, you know that, but the plural, you see, it's yamin. Okay. So no, that is not seas. So for 7 days he'll be impure. Now, this is actually really interesting because I don't know if you're like me, but I really like it when I find certain truths that are in the Bible, which were discovered by other civilizations. Like other civilizations, people were all trying to find the truth, right? Sometimes we don't want to find it. Sometimes we're just into a lie. Sometimes we're not. And I really was impressed at when I learned this. I was reading this. I think it was. Jacob Milgram, the scholar Jacob Milgram, writes about this in his commentary, and it turns out that the concept of a week-long purification for corpse contamination, it is attested in ancient Babylon. They have this in their writings. They say that that anyone who touches the dust from a place of mourning, right, so i.e. cemeteries, offers sacrifices to the god Shamash, right? So they got it perverted there. You're going to go sacrifice to their sun god. And then he bathes, changes clothing, and does not leave his house for, you got it, 7 days. Isn't that interesting? And the original article that's quoted there is Betrüge zur Kenntnis der Beschwörungsserie Namburbi. Okay, so anyway, whatever. Okay, so let's continue on then. Verse 12. Hu yitchata vo bayom hashalishi uvayom hashvi'i yithav. All right, so getting interesting now. So who, what's who mean? You know who? Who means he? So he, probably, again, goodness, go back. He himself, I would probably say, because yit chata means he will be purified, okay? Or he will purify himself. And then we don't need the he, do we? We don't need to say this word he. So he himself, so he himself, we need to say to make emphasis, will purify vo. This is an accusative of means, so it means by means of it, right? Using the stuff that was made by the Kohen and by the Ish Tahor. Bayom Hashalishi in the third day, Uvayom Hashavi'i, and in the seventh day, Yithar, he will be pure. He will become pure. Okay. V'im lo yitchata, but if he does not purify himself, this is a hitpayel, so himself, Bayom Hashalishi on the third day, Uvayom, or on the Yom Hashavi'i, the seventh day, Lo Yitar, he will not become pure. Yeah, yikes. That's kind of a sticky situation we have there. And by the way, you know they're using the ash, right? They're mixing the ash in the water and stuff. So Ibn Ezra comments that what this means is that his sin will remove itself into it, or perhaps we should understand this like the verb to purge me with hyssop till I am pure, from Psalm 51 verse 9. Titchateini be'ezol be'ethar, and then it continues, Tichabaseni, wash me, umisheleg albin, and I will become whiter than snow. So he shall de-sin himself, is the way you could think of it, on the third day and on the seventh day. And Ibn Ezra, I don't know what he's talking about, but he comments that it is well known that there are metaphysical qualities of these two numbers. Ooh, the third and the seventh. So I'm missing out on something there. We might have to ask Brother Daniel about that. He's got a lot more knowledge in that area. Chizkuni comments that saying that he has to wash himself with it, this yitchatavo, that we should wonder that the red heifer can make the unclean clean and the clean unclean. Remember that fire can melt metal and harden eggs. Drugs can heal the sick and sicken the healthy. And by being on the third and the seventh day, if the person delays the first cleansing until after the third day, he must leave 3 days in between so that the cleansing of the second one will take place. That's according to the Bechor Shor. So interesting takes by the sages there. What's going on? Okay, verse 13. Kol hanogea b'met b'nefesh ha'adam asher yamut v'lo yitchata et mishkan Adonai timei v'nichrata ha'nefesh hahi mi Yisrael. Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. That is not good news. Very, very frightening stuff there. So let's see what's going on. Let me change my color. Okay. So we stop at the Mata. There we go. So Kol hanogea, anyone who touches bamet, against something dead, b'nefesh ha'adam, against the corpse of a human, right? Adam. Asher yamut, who has died, velo yitchata, and they do not purify himself, meaning the person who did it. Et mishkan Adonai timei. Now, does anybody notice anything strange here about the order of the words in the sentence? Take a second, see if you see it. There's something not following the normal grammatical word ordering. Okay? It's not following the word ordering. I will colorize it for you. Et. Et is supposed to follow a verb. But look, where's our verb? Our verb is over here. That's the normal order in biblical Hebrew. Et, the thing that marks the object of the verb, the thing the verb is doing something to, comes after the verb. So what does it mean when it comes early? Well, if it comes early, it means that we should translate the section with special emphasis. So, Mishkan Adonai has special emphasis in your translation, okay? You need to understand that. It needs to be bold or something, okay? Moshe is showing the severity of what the sinner has done here, what the person's done, okay? So anyone who touches a dead thing or the corpse of a human, being the corpse of a human, who has died and does not purify himself, et Mishkan Adonai Timei, the sanctuary, the Mishkan of Hashem, Timei, he makes impure. He defiles it. He defiles it. You can use an explanation point if you want. You see this? There's something the text is telling us. Word order matters most of the time. These things matter. And this is very important. The Mishkan, the place where the Shekhinat Hashem, where the Panim, the presence is to come down and dwell with us, cannot cohabitate with impurities. He won't do it. This, Rabotai, my friends, is one reason why it's super important to not be lackadaisical about kashrut and other sorts of things, right? If we believe what is told to us that our bodies are the living Mishkan today, that we are the Chechal Hashem, the Chechal Elohim, the temple of God, then that means that for the Ruach HaKodesh to dwell within us, we need to make sure to not be impure. It's very important. Yes, Kedushah is important. Yes, Tzedek is important. But Tahorut, purity, is of utmost importance. So what's going to happen to this person? The person who did that. V'nichrata hanefesh hahi mi Yisrael. Then, I'm going to translate the vav as then, nichrata. So this is from karat. You know karat, right? Karat. What's karat mean? Like to karat a brit. A lot of you know this, right? Karat a brit. Right? What's karat? Karat is to cut, right? So this is nichrata, it's feminine. So will be cut. Hanefesh, the soul, hahi, that one. That soul shall be cut off. Yisrael. Terrible. Terrible. Ki me nida lo zorak alive. Tamei. Yihye od tum'ato vo. Ki mehinida lozorak alive. Tamei yihye od tum'ato vo. Meinida, these are the waters of lustration, right? These flowing waters. Lo zorak, this is really hard to recognize, this word. This word here is a pu'al form of the word zarak, which is like to sprinkle or to pour, right? So did not sprinkle, did not allow to flow alive upon him. Tamei yihye, unclean, impure he shall be. Od, still. Tumato, his impurity, vo, is within him. His impurity is still within him. And the Rashbam clarifies, even if he immerses in mikvah. Today we do mikvah because it's the best we can. We don't have Mishkan, right? We don't have this apparatus that Shaul, that Paul and the others were able to use. We don't have it. Okay, next. All right, and this is our final slide for part 2 from Aliyah 1 of the Aliyah Yomi. Zot HaTorah Adam ki yamut be'ohel. This is the Torah of a person when he dies be'ohel, in a tent, right? And the sages, they comment on this in a tent, like why does it say a tent? What's going on? The idea is this gives us the concept that we end up learning about in the Mishnah, that death, a corpse inside of a closed area is different than a corpse out in a field, right? So a tent is what people lived in back then. They could say binyan, it could be building today, right? So the idea is the impurity goes up. Impurity goes up. It goes up. Okay? It goes up. But if there's a closed surface, the impurity is trapped and it fills the room. This is why, it's not great to be in a room with a corpse, because the Mishnah says that that's it, you're infected for the most part. A field is better, an open field is better. Then there's a safer distancing that can happen. Yeah. So Ibn Ezra comments that at the time that this rule was given, the Jews were living in tents. Also, there's a rule of Yikra that says if anyone from the Beit Yisrael, tabach, he slaughters an ox or a sheep or goat in the camp, because whenever the Bnei Yisrael were living together in a camp at that time, you see, even though we don't live in camps now, so there's a little bit of difference to that, but at the time they were. Okay, it's also dangerous for anything else that's inside, anything else that's indoors. Okay, so let's continue on. Kol haba, anyone who comes, anyone who enters, like we say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, kol haba, anyone who comes, and you might have learned kol as everything or anything, but in this case, it's obviously applying to the Adam, right? So since it's applying to Adam, a person, right? So anyone who comes, el ha'ohel, into the tent, or whatever the living space is, the chol asher ba'ohel, and anyone who is in the tent, gitma, is rendered impure. Shivat yamin, for 7 days. 7 days. And now it gets interesting. We're going to talk about vessels and stuff like this. Okay? So let's look at verse number 15. V'chol keli fatuach asher ein samid patil alive. Okay. Let's stop with our nice little etmachta there. The whole keli. So, and every keli, this means like utensil, eating instrument, vessel, things that store things, right? Not like a fork or something, but like, a container. Fatuach. Fatuach, this is a passive participle from the verb fatach. Fatach. Fatach means open, right? So, fatuach, we can use the passive participle like an adjective, so it's open. So any open vessel, asher, which ein samid, which doesn't have a samid. Samid this is the only time it occurs in the Bible. This is a lid, doesn't have a lid. Fatil, this is an interesting word. So fatil, this is describing a mechanism that the ancients used to keep food, to keep bugs out of food and stuff like this, right? So they had various ways that they could connect things. So the previous word, the word for lid, samid, it's from the root samad, which means to bind together, right? It has the same meaning also in Ugaritic, to bind together, samad, right? So you can understand why this becomes the word lid, right? Samid. But this word patil, it's interesting. It looks like it's a passive participle of the verb patal, which is to twist, right? This is where we get the patil techelet, right? The twisted tzitzit, right? The shamash string, the blue thread, the techelet thread is formed, right? So the idea is, it seems like there was a cord or a thread that went through the lid, and then they would twist it to make it tight on the vessel, right? So kind of doing their best to make it airtight or something like that, okay? So any vessel, the whole keli fatuach, any open vessel, asher, which ein samid patil, which doesn't have any kind of closing lid apparatus, twisted lid apparatus, alive upon it, tameh, it becomes impure. It is impure. And the Mishnah tells us you got to break it if it's ceramic, and there's other stuff. That's it. It's done. You can't reuse that thing. It's a done deal. You're finished. So the idea is she'll be done. It's unclean forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And actually, in the Temple Scroll, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they actually add the word le'olam to make sure it's clear that it is tameh hu le'olam le'olam le'olam. All right, verse 16. V'chol asher yiga, v'chol asher yiga, al panei hasadeh, b'chala cherevo v'met, o v'etzem adam, o v'kaver. Okay, and of course we are stopping there with our nice etnachta, mulna etnachta. Okay, so, and anything which, this is from naga, the verb is actually naga, noon, gimel, ayin. Naga is to touch. Anything which touches al panei hasadeh, upon the surface of the field. Bachalal cherev. Okay, so this is against a pierced one of a sword, right? So this is like a corpse, right? Corpse has been pierced by a sword. Oh, the mate, or just in general, it's a corpse, just dead. Oh, or the etzem adam, or the bone of a man, of a person, rather. Oh, or the kaver, or they touched a grave. Okay, so we have a quite lengthy situation there. What is going to happen with this person? I think you can guess, but we've got pretty good detail on what their situation is. So that's anybody who touched. Oh man, I'm sorry. I thought I thought I changed it to highlighter. Anyone who touched against something that's in the field, a corpse who's been slain, or against the dead, or the bone. This is why it's bad to be an archaeologist. You're going to be tummy all the time. Doesn't matter how old the bones are. They keep polluting. Yitma shivat yamim. He will be unclean for 7 days. 7 days. And Ibn Ezra qualifies that this word here, the kever, this one, it's only lengthened to kaver because it's in pause. A kever, a grave, he says an empty grave doesn't count. So if someone dug a grave and you happened upon the grave, you're not tameh. Obviously, it has to have a corpse in it. Not the act of making the shape of a grave has some mystical and purifying properties or something like that. All right. All right. Okay, let's continue. Let me just change my colors real quickly here. Bear with me. So I'm making a few mistakes. We're trying the new format. Thanks for your patience. I think in general, being able to write is worth the occasional mess-ups. So our last verse from the first aliyah is verse 17. And this one says, V'lakechu latameh me'afar serefat hachata'at. And they shall take for the impure one, me'afar, from the ashes of. So here we actually have this, we have a construct chain coming up. Okay. There it is. Afar, serefat, chata'at. Okay, that is our chain. And it's saying that, where were we? V'lakechu, they shall take, meaning the community shall take, for the impure person, from the ashes of the serifah. Serifah can mean a couple of things. It can mean like fire itself, or it can mean like the fire pit, the place where the fire happened, right? So, of the chatat, of the purification, right? So it's something like, the fire of cleansing is really what it's saying, from the serifat hachatat, right? Or the burnt purification offering. You could translate that way as well. Then Atan. And notice I have Natan, he's in purple. So I have my own way of marking things. If there's a more common meaning, it's yellow. If it's a secondary meaning, it's green. And if it's quite rare, or a little bit more rare, then we say purple. Purple. And in this case, when you have the verb Natan, he can equal plus, added. Okay, v'natan alive, and shall be added to them. We have mayim chayim. What's that? Flowing water, right? Spring water. Could be ocean water as well, right? I don't think there's anything that says it can't be salty for this particular procedure. Ale unto keli, the vessel, right? So we're mixing the ashes with the water, and it's actually quite interesting because the Torah text itself, it makes it look like, well, at least it implies that the water was to be added to the ashes, right? So you first say add the ashes and then you add the water. But the Chazal say that it is actually the ashes that were added to the water. This is in the Sifra, right? In Sifra Bamidbar 128. So who knows? Who knows? Probably sages are correct. We'll go with Chazal. Okay. So anyway, I hope you've appreciated the aliya yomi. Hope you learned something, and it was beneficial, and not just a lot of prattling. I hope you weren't too confused by stuff moving all around. By the way, Nachmanides talks about this, the vessel, that the water should be added to them in a vessel, right? So you don't just throw it on the ashes, right? You have to actually pour the water onto it in the vessel, mix it up, and and so to make it mix nicely, yep. So anyway, please leave comments, let me know. Please pray that our, that the ban will be lifted and everything will go well, and pray always for our ministry, and please pray for me that I can continue to bring you guys good teachings. Adonai, todah lecha l'chol hadavim ha'eli, ve'נחנו nevarech. God b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Until later, shalom, shalom.